Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mad Mamluks. I'm Mahin and I'm joined today by my co-hosts Sheikh Amr Saeed and Sim. And on today's show, we welcome a very special guest, Mirza Baig, the founder of Islamica magazine, which was a quarterly magazine in the United States with editorial offices in Amman, Jordan, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and London, UK, dedicated to presenting various perspectives and opinions on Islam and the Muslim world. Mirza, thank you so much for coming on. By the way, I know you're a Houston guy. How are you able to do this editorial without being in Amman and these places? Is it kind of like a remote thing back in the day for you?
I'm always jumping around the place. It's pretty easy now with modern day travel. But actually, that Islamica is actually a different Islamica magazine.
Oh, really? Wait, I thought we were going to get the Islamic magazine with Islamic affairs
I thought you had connections to Sheikh New Keller.
That's why you're here, bro. We wanted to give bayat to Sheikh.
Sorry, guys. We're like the we're like the store brand version of Islamica. you got the Topco. Topco.
Oh, shoot.
Cereal.
Prepared for the wrong guy.
You didn't get
we prepped for the wrong guy.
So for people who don't know, Islamica News is I should start. I wish I had that movie voice. In the beginning, before there was Yasser Qadi and all the major Muslim publications out there.
Yep.
There was Islamica News. Islamica News, for those who don't know, is, and you probably don't know if you're not following any Islamic stuff, but they're the onion for Muslims. Really, that's what. That's the only way to describe the publication.
Yeah.
But Mirza, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
It's an honor. I've been wanting to have you on for so long. I think you guys really set the stage for comedy and parody in the Muslim sphere for however many has it been 20 years now?
20 plus.
It's been 20 plus years actually. Yeah.
So comedic writing, bro. You know what put it back on the map for me again when the Texas armed protests outside of the masjid, the article that came out.
I think it was Arizona, right? Phoenix.
Was it Arizona or Texas? I think it may have been Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. And then I was like, somebody sent that to me, and somebody thought it was real. That was it. Somebody WhatsApped that thing to me. Look, bro, did you hear these guys who were armed outside the masjid that became Muslim, bro? I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, dude, they're eating samosas and everything, but they got blocked in. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I sent you this article. I was like, dude, this is Islamica. Man. You guys, comedic writing, and I was telling this to Sim, you guys are way ahead of your time. I think some of the jokes you guys had, people didn't get it back then.
I mean, they did not.
But now that
tough,
it's unrolling itself very nicely. You guys are way ahead of your time, though, man.
Yeah, thanks.
You really were.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been a journey, honestly, and then like you said, I think a lot of I say the modern Muslim comedy genre, identifies its start at 9/11, right? So rightfully so, you had 9/11 that amplified Islamophobia, but the concept of Islamophobia was actually pretty prevalent in the mid 90s, right? If you look at everything that went down, you had Desert Storm, right, in the 90s. You had the first World Trade Center bombing that happened in 1993, I believe. And you had TWA hijacking. You had Lockerbie well before that. And you had all of these events that kind of stereotyped and profiled Muslims already in a negative light. And to kind of combine against that, you had Hollywood coming out with these profiled sort of roles with True Lies, I think, Not Without My Daughter. What else was out there? Delta Force, right?
Bro, we had to watch that with our in class, and everyone hated Muslims right after watching Not Without My Daughter.
That was my comparative religions class. I took that one after him in the same school. And our teacher was a lady who used to be Muslim, and she wasn't Muslim anymore.
Right.
And she taught that. And I said, why are you teaching this? Why are you showing this video? And she's like, no, I just want to make sure they can tell what's right and wrong. That's what her reasoning was. I just want to make sure they can tell what's right and wrong. I was like, but we didn't differentiate that in class.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But that was the only reference points because before people knew that they were Islamophobic, and in your earlier discussion, you talked about, no one really knew what racism was because it wasn't well defined at that time, right? No one knew if they were being racist or not. But the concept of Islamophobia really came through with a lot of these, different productions and a lot of the media didn't typecast as well. There was no representation in the media. And I think before, we even talk about Islamica News, to kind of backtrack, there's Islamica, the company, right? So not Islamica, the magazine.
Okay. Yeah.
Freaking Wikipedia, man. Gets you every time.
Did that kind of make you feel a little weird when you started doing that?
Oh man, what am I into, dude? I was trying to craft like, okay, yeah, just play along, and then at the end, come clean. I'm like, hey guys, none of that was true.
Wrong Islamica.
But the Islamica, the company, we came out with actually an apparel company, right? We made funny shirts. And we started really at the ISNA conventions, right? ISNA conferences in Chicago.
Sorry to cut you off. Were you guys the one that did the Lota Power one?
Yeah, we did.
That was you guys?
Yeah.
You know, we bought like 4 of those shirts. We had them rolling around. My dad used to get angry when you used to wear those shirts. And the other one, like pigs are haram, dancing pigs are haram. Bro, that's from the late 90s, bro.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, that pig shirt.
The pig shirt.
We so for everyone in the audience, we had a simple shirt that basically had the word pig and it was crossed out, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And so we wore that at the ISNA conference in 1997 in Chicago. And we were crossing the street literally with these shirts over our shoulder, and we were trying to sell them inside. And all of a sudden, like literally on the corner of Michigan Avenue in one of the side streets, people were stopping us, and we were selling them right on the street.
This was ISNA was downtown.
This was it was when ISNA was a little more low profile. I mean, it was still pretty high profile, but nowhere where it is today. But it was in downtown Chicago, and we were actually migrating our shirts over into the main building. But before we even got there, I think we sold half our inventory, and we ended up selling, I think, all of our inventory. And it was such a new thing for folks to see this overlap of humor and religion, right? And
there was nothing like it before.
There was nothing like it before.
Some probably considered it blasphemous, right, for you guys?
There was a tough time, honestly. Whenever you present, and I don't want to call it innovation because, obviously that's a trigger word, but just the idea that you can be a little more aggressive and wear your identity a little more proudly, right? Because again, at that time, the climate was not there, right? You almost had to hide the fact in many ways that you were Muslim because of the negative consequences. And so what we wanted to really deliver was that fashionable option, that cool hip option, in an environment where that simply did not exist. And so if you're a teenager, when I went to school, I didn't have these options, right? Either I had to go with the objective, functional religious identity, or I had the option to you just kind of bury it. And so if I'm walking up to my wardrobe or closet in that morning, I want to be able to pull a Juma shirt, which was a Puma parody, right?
That was you guys.
That was us, yeah. So
pretty much everything that was parody was Islamica. I think you guys could have like trademarked parody itself as a concept in Islam. Like that's just us.
Yeah,
because I don't think anyone was doing parody back then.
No one was doing it.
That's what I'm saying. They were way
like late 90s, because the first time I came across parody shirts was like 2006, 2007. So you were already in the game for like 10 years by then.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I remember this guy named Fatwa Factory. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
So yeah, I recall them. Yeah, they were. I think they came in mid 2000, right? 28.
Right. Yeah. And they had a shirt called Salafi Street. Like instead of Sesame Street, it was Salafi Street. And on the back said B is for Bid'ah. So I copped like 2 of those. I wish I had them still, but
So I was with HT when you guys first started, and you guys created this one T-shirt with Zangief from Street Fighter that said "Headbutt Tahrir."
Yeah, right.
I was so upset. I'm like, who's this guy?
Are you serious?
Making fun of my team, my boys. But it was funny as heck though. I laughed, but then I'm like, who are these guys making fun of us?
I should have brought one. You know what? That was our worst seller. And I still to this day have a box full. So if I had known,
oh my god, dude, I'm coming over.
We can get one.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm down. I'm totally down. Headbutt the fear.
Yeah.
How'd you remember that?
Dude, it was one of my first memories because I remember one of our friends, Abdul, common friend, wearing it. I'm like, where did he get this? Because it's an obvious dig at my boys. Right. And I'm like, who would actually spend money making this? And it's such a niche joke that only a few people would understand. Because most people don't know who HT is, and even among like seasoned Muslims, like, borners or what did you call them? Birthers?
Yeah. Dude, how did you guys come up with that?
Honestly,
who came up with this?
So it's a collection of different ideas. I think we sit around in a room and it's just like any creative process, right? There's no timing to it. You know, you think of something funny or you think of play on words, and you just jot it down, right? And so Headbutt the Hair just made sense because just the way it rolled off your tongue. But then, you know, I was actually I had a lot of friends in His with Their Hair at the time as well, right? And so we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we make a shirt of a wrestler, right? Of this fictional wrestler that was a Muslim wrestler, right? This was way before, you know, any of the MMA fighters or anything. And, you know, we pulled from, you know, probably copyright infringement and trademark infringement, but we pulled from Zangief. I can't believe you remember that. And we made that Headbutt the Hair shirt, and it just sat like no one got it, right? Because you really had to be in the loop.
And in Chicago or California, because there's only a few major metropolises that really had HT presence,
right?
So only a few people among those crowds would understand that joke, or the humor behind it, right?
I didn't even know that existed.
You would do well in the UK.
I want one of those so bad.
Oh yeah.
I'll
think of the UK.
I'm so surprised, like you guys didn't really push the UK market, because that kind of stuff would have just flopped.
They probably tried. I don't think they understand.
Because the UK had compared to America. I mean, America had a pittance compared to what the UK in terms of HT presence, and any kind of group presence is always one with someone.
But the challenge is the UK Muslims got something stuck up their butt, man. It's like they don't understand humor.
They don't.
Everything is like haram and like astaghfirullah, you're mocking the deen.
But you know, like when I was in the UK, I hung out with Dilly. We joked about everything. But when you're on screen, they had to have this like decorum. You know, like
that's understandable. That's your culture.
But you can when you're like among your boys, you just they joke just like us.
Of course, Yep.
But like they have to like present this aura of like, you know, we are the ring holders of Islam. I don't know what the.
So basically, you're saying they're being inauthentic.
I don't know about that, but I think that one of the things that draws people to our show, and I think it's the level of authenticity. We don't push people, or we don't try to tell people that we're the torchbearers, and we try to say like, hey, we're struggling and you're going to struggle with us. We're going to all try to pick each other up together and kind of laugh along with it, and you know, be part of the journey. And I think
that's why I think this guy's a perfect guest, because he's always been doing this all the satire and stuff, and like this comedic joking with the straight face, you know, the name repeating thing that he does. He's been doing this since the mid '90s, bro. So having you on the show,
when you guys were doing it, I really wanted to like join you guys, but I didn't know anyone who. I just knew Abdul was part of, you know, or was our connection. But I really wanted to like do the writing. I'm like, man, these guys are so like, they actually understand humor, you know? And it's not, I mean, look, we have great comedians in the Muslim sphere, but
for sure,
we have like, I think
the only Muslim guy is good comedian is Dave Chappelle, bro.
Look,
there's a few.
We got a few guys. I mean, I think Maz Jabrani is doing some good stuff, but he's again, like we're talking about the Muslim sphere, like the people who do the comedy circuit in ISNA and other conferences and stuff. So we have a level of humor that can only be ingested by the mainstream crowd. It's very inoffensive. It doesn't really upset. You guys aren't afraid to upset people, and that's what I loved about it. And I was like,
I'm pretty offended by that, man.
So I was like, okay, well, this is something I would love to be part of, because these guys actually understand. Comedy is about pushing the boundaries. It's not necessarily about breaking the boundaries, but you want to push people's comfort levels, you know, especially in the Muslim sphere, where we actually have boundaries and we have rules and things like that. And we have decorum and respect that we don't want to, you know, insult the faith and stuff, and insult people of respect and knowledge. So people who understand that, but also are getting people out of their comfort zone, are hard to find, you know,
you have to be extra
because
super
like
creative.
when you go, I mean, like for example, Bob Ali, we love him, right? He does great comedy. When he's doing his comedy, he has to understand his audience, you know? He can't be upsetting people too much, you know? So when you have a group of Muslims pushing people's comfort level, right? In comedy, and getting them in all kinds of different directions to understand, like, hey, comedy is not necessarily about, you know, making fun of religion, but it's maybe about getting out of your comfort zone and laughing about things that you thought you wouldn't necessarily laugh about in the past,
I see what you're saying. Did you ever did you guys even at Islamica ever do any stand-up comedy or anything like that, or it was mainly just just
Shirts
comedic writing and stuff?
We did a lot actually. So if you remember, and I don't know if you guys, I'm gonna probably throw something you weren't aware of. We actually met at YMMA, right? I was I'm a forgetful face, but I know you guys from YMMA.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So YMMA is like for a lot of the people internationally, it's a youth group that was
Young Men's Muslim Association.
Yeah,
the
Ikhwani,
the reply to the YMCA.
yeah.
So what year? So if you don't mind me asking, what year did you graduate high school? If you don't mind me
Oh
asking.
boy, here we go. Ready? I'm gonna
No, if you don't want to.
Wait,
information.
was this the YMMA at IFS?
This was the
So did you ever see me over there? Because I went there a few times, but then I became Gothic and.
Bro, we played football together. Like,
shut up.
Yeah. And
no, but these two. I was living in Chicago back then.
No, but so I want to know, either he's one of those guys that's older than us, looks really young, or he's really young. So he's probably from the second generation, your brother's generation.
I'm assuming you're like mid-40s. Low to mid-40s, based upon,
and I'll be okay with it.
Low 40s.
You throw out any age under 45, and I'm just gonna.
Yeah, because based upon your timeline, it's just like you're not like high schoolers aren't selling T-shirts in '97.
I started when I was 3 years old, man. I was what you call a little bit of a.
Mirza has this stealth look about him. A lot of covert operatives can just kind of blend in with different scenes. So that's why you're not popping up in my mind like.
Maybe he's an agent. I don't know. But anyways, forget about that. Yeah.
But, so YMMA, you met these guys
had blue eyes back then.
The name actually looked. I mean, the face looks sort of familiar, but I don't remember.
So the reason why I bring that up is because actually, Islamica is a convergence of different efforts, right? So at YMMA, if you guys remember, this is going way back. We had a publication called The Renaissance.
That was you guys,
and that was us, right? Yep. And so
we had a publication called The Shield. Back then,
that was YMMA, bro. Don't link that to YMMA, bro. That's some HT to really rich,
called
bro.
the HT publication. Called
Anyways, go ahead.
You guys were probably leafleting outside. But so the Renaissance was a collection of different stories, and Rehan Siddiqui was a part of it.
That's
Akif Ahmad.
My brother's Naveed. Say, you know Naveed?
Yeah. And
that's my brother. That's my oldest brother. Yeah,
exactly. So all those OG guys were part of it. And then there was a different effort with Azhar Ahmad over at one of the junior colleges here that we published a newsletter for the local MSA. And so all of these efforts were kind of going on. And so we did a bunch of different projects in that collaboration. We came out with a parody of the Blair Witch Project called the Blair Khan Project.
Yeah, I heard of it.
I don't know if you remember this.
That.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was like this very low budget, and the original was also low budget, but it was basically these Muslims that are videographers, right? They're on their way to basically do wedding photography, but then they get lost and they stumble upon this small town and they find about this legend of Blair Khan. So they try to go through the town and they're basically, so a bunch of guys, if you know Zaki Hassan, who's
diffuse congruence.
Yeah, exactly. He was actually in there, right? This was back.
He was a good artist. I remember that back then. He used to do all the comics and cartoons.
Oh yeah.
Can you guys wrap your mind around all the people who came out of the IFS community area who ended up doing all kinds of crazy stuff?
Oh yeah.
All of that goes back to the founder of IFS, Dogar Saab. Now all that Sadaqa Jariyah, man, the talent pool that was there in the late 90s to 2000, it was like you hear about scenes of the East Coast scene where a whole bunch of rappers pop out or musicians pop out of a concentrated bunch of people who are kind of sharing the same experiences and they want to express their creativity, and all these people just at least in the Muslim space kind of burst out of this small community of maybe a few thousand.
Exactly, or maybe less in the beginning, but
the barrier is that creativity wasn't really nurtured, right? It was, you had your streams, now it's a lot more open and you have a wide spectrum of things you can get into because let's face it, entertainment is a lot more acceptable than it was in the mid 90s. So because it was never a primary thing, people had to hedge their, passions against the desires of, their parents saying, okay, you got to become a doctor, engineer. We've heard this narrative, countless times. But even in that climate, you had certain people in certain, projects that were able to, kind of break that barrier and transcend it. But it's unfortunate that was a climate, but it is also, amazing. And there is a level of appreciation to see that came out of the YMMA, right? But so the Islamica News essentially was sparked after we had these, this operation around T-shirts. was actually I was doing a stint at a local IBM site. I was a desktop support tech, and one of the procurement guys was actually moonlit as a writer, a freelance writer for Conan O'Brien, right? And so you would think like you make a lot of money. In that case, like he wasn't. Soren McCarthy was his name. He's big time in Hollywood now, but he basically called me over. He's like, Mirza, come here. I want you to read something, and he pulled out this paper. And it said The Onion on top of it, right, in print formation. And he's like, check out this article. I think you'd like it. And the headline was Christ Converts to Islam. Right?
No.
And that story, like if you go back and read it, it was published in 1999. And for the folks at home, if you want to Google it later on, that story had so much accurate detail in there, talking about the 99 names of Allah, talks about how Christ basically came and said, I know I said a lot of this stuff in the Bible, but I just want to tell you I'm wrong, right?
What?
And I'm gonna convert now. So when I read that article, it was so profound to me, and it was so well written with a satiric undertone and obviously a humorous undertone that I was like, dude, this is it, right? Whoever wrote this is a genius. And this is the style of humor that we want to pursue. So I picked up the phone and I'm like, dude, Azhar, you got to check this out, man. We got to do something like this. And that is how Islamica News, the satirical publication, was born, was off of that inspiration to that single article, right? Again,
your mentioning of The Onion of this is very accurate, bro.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the
You've
TMM
been saying
started.
this for years. You've been saying this for years. It's the onion for Muslims, bro.
And this is what they say about Mamluks, that it's Joe Rogan for Muslims. But what I wanted to do was it's a little bit more different than that, where we're kind of having a more of a halakha style that's not a real halakha where you're discussing seriously, but it's more humor based, and you're learning, but also having all kinds of discussions that are not necessarily something that you're learning from a book from Nuhamim Keller or any other scholar, but in a more loose setting. And but back then before TMM started, for a couple of years we were watching Joe Rogan when he was like a nobody, at least in the podcast space. Me, you, and a few others were really just focused on that show. We're like, he's onto something, and we got to make an Islamic version of this.
Yeah.
And so it took at least a year just in preparing ourselves mentally, and figuring out branding and all kinds of different things related to starting up a whole new brand. And I just remember being obsessed about it. These guys know, like I had it in my head that it has to happen, and we're the ones who have to do it. And we have to do it so much better than everyone else. If anyone else does come along, it's just a copy of a copy,
Yeah.
You guys did a fantastic job, especially with the branding and your operations and the ability to, kind of syndicate your content across the different streams,
It means a lot coming from you, bro, honestly.
Oh, man.
So you started off with t-shirts, writing, found satire, and then you're like, all right, you know what? I call up Azhar, and we got to make this happen. I had my aha moment.
Yeah.
What happens after that?
So the t-shirts were happening before this article came out.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah. Way
Okay,
before.
I got you.
They had the mindset. The thing I'm loving about this is it
Yeah.
shows his mindset before he gets to this Islamica thing.
Oh, the t-shirts were crazy, and there was a lot of controversy around the t-shirts too, right? We stumbled as well, right? It was new water. We didn't know exactly where the limits were, although we created boundaries for ourselves, right? I think we were very, very sensitive to that. Just to go back to the t-shirts, once at ISNA, so we came out with the shirts imagine in 1997, 98, we came out with a shirt that said Muslims do it 5 times a day, right? And that was it. That was just the front. And so we sold that shirt, and it caught wind. It was like one of our best sellers. And if you've ever been to ISNA, so ISNA is like any conference, right? There's always a main floor, a main presentation area. And then there's your breakouts. So in the main presentation area, where about 500 to 1,000 people gather at any time, someone stood up and they're like, "What's going on with ISNA? You guys are going downhill. Someone is selling a shirt that says Muslims do it 5 times a day," and then everyone collectively gasped. And then finally, someone stands up and goes, "Yeah, but the back says Fajr, Zohar, Asr, Maghrib, Isha." And everyone burst out laughing, right? So like we're kind of used to that pushback, but we're also used to people coming to our defense who understand it better, right? And like, listen, we screw up, we acknowledge that as well, but are fun times. But kind of coming back to the right,
and you know what I do? Look,
it's a beautiful story.
People who listen to the TMM, it's like they know, like we make a lot of innuendo, right?
Right.
My thing is that if you understood the innuendo, then you're guilty too.
Yeah.
So why are you getting upset? most people who are pure-hearted, they have no idea what we joke about or what we said. So your heart is corrupt just as much as us. So why are you like?
I don't think it has much to do with that too. It's more like it's more like some things are better said, better not said.
No,
in
look,
public,
if you imagine someone who heard, like someone pure of heart who doesn't know any better, and you said Muslims do it 5 times a day, they're like, oh, of course we do Salah 5 times a day. They wouldn't ever think about anything else.
There's always that one guy. Who's like,
there's always the one guy who's just as harami as everyone, but he wants to elevate himself. He wants to show to everyone, like, hey, look, I'm going to tell everyone how deplorable these people are.
deplorable.
That's a whole different topic. I like that topic. But so
next half hour. Yeah.
So now what happens after the phone call to Azhar?
So we get started right away. So Azhar is a genius when it comes to computers and being able to operationalize this whole initiative. And so he was like, dude, he's very well versed in layout. And remember, digital wasn't the primary medium back then. It was still print, right? We were in this transition phase. And so we actually came out with newsletter issues. It was an issue-based piece, and we used to pass it around. We pass it out ISNA, but we also pass it out like at the Eid Salahs, like around here in the Chicago area. And that's basically our primary circulation. It wasn't until later where we transitioned, and very shortly thereafter, where we transitioned to a purely digital format. But also with that, we also had the discussion forum. So the discussion forum we didn't talk about, but discussion forum was actually the subculture of his Islamic kins. It actually became a thing where people would come in and they would talk about a whole bunch of different subjects, whether it be Islam or whether it be something about school. And they developed a community. So the Islamica community was actually a big thing.
And it was all kind of like a satirical community.
No, this was actually a discussion board. This is like your any back in the day discussion
IslamicAwakening.com type thing.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Islamic Awakening.
Sorry,
dude.
sorry.
Very much so. Yeah.
You know Islamic Awakening?
I think I do. Yes.
These guys, they had to shut down. Let's just say that.
Gotcha.
Maybe Sim wasn't very happy.
No, there were a few discussion people sometimes come into your discussion forums and stuff, and they end up hijacking the forum. Yeah. People of a certain persuasion.
I see what you're saying. Okay, good.
We ran into a little bit of that on the discussion forums as well. Yeah, it's got to be heavily administered. With anything in an open forum, you've got to make sure that you're monitoring it, right? But going back to UK was actually a huge contingent on that discussion forum, and UK is actually was a huge fan base for us back then as well. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because ISNA had that appeal a little bit into the UK, so it actually went out to Canada, but also,
But was that your guys' idea to start the forum too?
It was actually. Azhar was a mastermind behind the discussion forum because he was like, I know this V Bulletin, which was the core platform back then, and then he installed it, and then it just kind of, I think it was up to like 100,000, 500,000 page views a day. It was pretty.
Wow.
Pretty intense. Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah. For back then, it was definitely impressive. Now that's like a drop in the bucket. But so getting back, and I know it's a long-winded.
No, dude, this is what we want, man. We want to pick your brain, dude.
Yeah. So after that, we started. I think couple of the inaugural the inaugural issue articles were, one was South Disney, right? So Disney decided to open up a theme park in Saudi, and they called it South Disney, right?
These guys are way ahead of their time because that's what Saudi had recently started doing. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't think we were trying to forecast anything, but because they had Euro Disney at that time, and Euro Disney was a huge flop, and so it was making the headlines, and so Saudi wanted to get into it, and then Saudi, in the middle of the desert, built this huge, thing where Minnie had to wear jilbab, and Mickey had to lower his gaze, and Disney had just come out with Disney had just come out with Gay Day, I think, at that time, and Saudi was like, no Gay Day, right? And so we wrote articles like that. We also wrote, making fun of the doctor profession pursuit. We also talked a little bit about the marriage proposal process, right? And so eventually we started, writing all of these different articles around Ramadan, but we always recognize our boundaries. But I think the stories were basically, they were broadly based on our own experiences, right?
Of course.
I mean, when you go into a mosque environment, and I grew up in Houston, right? So that part you got awesome, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Houston, and we grew up, seeing the growth of the Muslim community there, and I spent a lot of time in the masjid, just hanging out while my dad was having his board meetings, whatever. And so, you make those observations where there's so much comedy to extract from different moments. The parking lot is a ton of comedy, right?
Yeah,
it's a lot of drama,
So
but there's
much
so much
material.
material.
But you have to be observer to realize that and articulate it,
But
right?
but the point is, it keeps giving. Even till this day, we write articles about the parking lot, right? I mean, if you go look at, we're on Instagram at Islamica News, but if you go to our most recent post, it still picks on the parking lot. We talk about the wudu area, right, as another area, right? You always have that one guy who's going to town clearing his throat, and you literally hear it reverberate throughout the prayer hall, right? It's that guy going, right?
And you see it where the drain hole is. It's
Yeah,
stuck there.
and you see
And
that-
you act like you don't see it.
And you see that loogie just like hanging on for dear life, like, right? And it's sitting there, and you come back a week later, and it's still like on its last breath, right? So those are the type of things that we see, right? And there was one time, I'll tell you the story. It's not an Islamic news article, but I walked into the bathroom, and I get there, I'm waiting in line, and some guy walks out to fill his lorta. And I kid you not, this guy is dripping wet from head to toe. Literally, his clothes are soaked, and no one notices. Literally, he's dripping. It's like, that was normal to a lot of people. Like, everyone's like, okay, whatever. And I'm just sitting there, I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, are we not going to talk about this? I mean, does no one see this, right?
Can we have a discussion about this?
What just happened in that salt? Like, what? Like, I mean, there's got to be a story there.
Were there showers in the
No,
stalls?
there was nothing like that. It was like
Poor
a
guy
two.
probably had to go hustle,
It
bro.
was like the Mina. They have the
Yeah.
When you go to Hajj, they have the Mina, the showers.
Yeah.
Not like nothing like that.
No, nothing.
Hey.
Right?
So Sheikh Amr thinks he had to do ghusl.
Maybe. You never know. He probably stood on top of the toilet.
There's
He
got to
did
be.
his ghusl.
I'm sure there's a logical explanation, but at that moment, it just did
It's
not make
crazy.
sense.
It's
Nothing
crazy.
made sense. And so, we use a lot of these experiences and moments, and so it's a collection of experiences that kind of go into it. And of course, we sprinkle, a little bit of hyperbole in there. We sprinkle a lot of hyperbole in there,
Satire,
and with
man,
a satire undertone. But it's revolving around those concepts. And I think now what we're trying to do is we're trying to generalize it more. I think the feedback that we've gotten over time with some of these articles, first of all, initially there was nothing like it. So to your point, there's a lot of people that actually believed it. They, the concept of Muslim satire was a foreign concept, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying that, in a figurative sense,
couldn't
obviously in
tell
a
it was a
literally
joke,
sense, yeah. But it was such a foreign concept that people would buy into it, and then they would get so, kind of amped up about it and so angry about it that they would pick sides. When our comment section was first open, we would see, the natural evolution of a comment section is first, any issues presented in the article or the post, and then, the first stage or first phase of it as you pick sides, right? Sides are manufactured, and then you kind of see those sides evolve and people, going back and forth. One article that we wrote was actually when Obama was in his last years, right? In fact, in his lame duck, segment of his presidency, he actually went to a mosque in Washington, D.C., right? And that was his first time. He stayed away from the Muslim community before that. At least, he'd had his Ramadan iftars and everything. But he decided to visit a mosque in the very last few months. And so right as that was happening, we wrote an article about him walking into the mosque, walking into the wudu area, doing ghusl, doing wudu, and then he leads the prayers, right? And his tajweed was on point, and it's like he did this every second of his life. Like, this was just like something that he regularly did, right? And this was also, there was a rumor or conspiracy that he's a secret Muslim and that he's going to bring Islam into the White House, et cetera, et cetera. And so we just wanted to kind of play up on those fears.
Wow.
And so we wrote that, and man, the comment section, we shut it down now, maybe for the purpose of this and for the folks at home. we might reactivate it. But that in itself, I'd say funnier than the article was actually the reactions that we got off the comments section, because people were like, how could this be? He's not Muslim. How did he lead this prayer? Surely this prayer is invalid, right? And then the other side of it is like, yes, but look at the good in it. You know, you have to, and obviously it's comments, so I don't know if it's accent. You can only infer it from broken English, right? Or typos and stuff.
Yeah.
But people are like, oh, look at the good in it. He's Muslim. He's doing something good, and what does it matter as long as this is good for the Muslim community? It's like, wow, you're just reading back and forth like, wow. And so going back, we've always kind of been in that situation. We've gotten in trouble as well. I think we wrote something on the women's mosque when that was happening, and so we wrote it. And
women's mosque, which one is that?
So back in I think 2014, there was this first women's mosque that
in
opened.
California.
I think it was in California.
Okay.
Yep. And so we actually foolishly decided to get into that, and so we wrote it, and clearly it didn't go over well with a lot of people, and rightfully so. Probably there's probably a lot of immaturity in there. So immediately as a reaction, we wrote about a mosque where all the women left for the women's mosque, and it just turned into chaos, right? To kind of equal it out, right? And so we've kind of been in those situations. But I guess it goes with the territory, right? But now you've got a lot of in the modern day, you've had some other Muslim satire operations. I think the Hummus was one out of California. Really creative guys. They're not writing as frequently.
Their name is the Hummus.
The Hummus, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about this. Did you hear about this before? That's pretty dope.
My user ID at work when we used to have Messenger on MSN. My user ID was Hummus Rap. Does that mean anything? I mean,
no, it's completely related.
You're probably flagged.
Did you get in any legal trouble for? Did they try doing some legal thing against you about the women's mosque article type thing?
No, nothing like that.
Okay,
I don't.
good.
Because I don't think there's any legal implications or anything.
No, that's good.
Right.
No, I mean, I think that what happens is that they just there's like an activist crowd that kind of leans on you and puts some pressure on you.
Yeah.
And I think that's you may have felt that. I think that's what they do to us on Twitter. There's like one of our recent episodes where we had someone controversial on. They just like hundreds of them will just band together.
Yeah.
They never even listen to our show.
Right.
They'll just be like, "Oh, you're bringing on so and so onto our show," and just try to flood you with at mentions and stuff like that on Twitter. I
mean, there's a broader knee-jerk reaction and a flavor of the day argument that happened, and that is just the internet, and that's just the reality of someone's got to be offended by something, and that's where it starts. And so there is that dynamic that plays into it, right? And so you're never going to not offend anyone. That's something that you guys very well know. No matter who you bring on, I'm sure that Jeremy McClellan was on a few weeks ago, and I'm sure someone somewhere didn't like what he was about. Certainly the Indians, the Indian government doesn't like him. So but the guy's brilliant, right? And he's awesome. He's fantastic.
He's a nice dude. I like him a lot, man.
And some of your other guests as well have had some sort of controversy. We haven't. What we've shied away from is naming any sort of personalities specifically. We've always kind of skirted around the issue. So, for example, there was a lot of imam controversy and a lot of high-profile Muslim controversies in the past, and we've kind of avoided that because we don't want to. First of all, a situation is still in play, right? There hasn't been any sort of, conviction or any sort of judgment, a formal judgment against anyone, and so why even go into that fray? But what we did do on the inverse side of it was that. We have a hypothetical mosque, right? It's called Islamic Society of Anywheresville. It has a hypothetical and fictional imam called Sheikh Mabudi. And so we personify these two environments and characters to kind of illustrate the stories much better, right? So if we want to bring them to life, there's a number of different stories. But one of the articles that we had on the site was, a lot of the imam controversy had to do with these high-profile, charismatic imams, right? But us, for our article, we were a mosque that was, proactively telling everyone that our introvert of an imam who is less than charismatic is free from any controversy. So you don't have to worry about any of that because he's so like to himself. He gives broken khutbahs. No one ever pays attention when they're at Jummah. So, you know, he's not harmful, right? You know, he couldn't hurt a fly,
right? Yeah.
As long as they don't pay attention to khutbahs, yeah.
Right. Which is
success.
Which is most of our, you know, Islamic communities and in our leaderships are, you know, there's a lot of irrelevance there, right? So it kind of played up that theme.
That's very nice. So one thing I always had a question about is
Sure.
when you're writing these articles and you brainstorm and like while you're writing this, are you kind of like, you know, chuckling and laughing, or are you just like writing your thing like, all right, I'm done, bro, and that's it? I mean, do you get kind of used to it, or are you having a good time when you're writing it too?
I think it's, you know, if you enjoy comedy, if you enjoy the creative process, right, and you truly, I mean, it all starts from an idea, right? And if you laugh and you're appreciating the idea, the evolution of that idea into execution is always enjoyable, right? And so, you know, there's a refinement process there as well. There's a collaboration process. I'll, you know, bounce it off these guys. We've got, you know, a little bit of WhatsApp group, and I'll test out the material, and Azhar will test out the material, and we'll go back and forth. And, you know, these guys will be like Rehan Siddiqui, who's a household name, who will also come back, chime in, you know, Tahami, these guys will all be like,
oh
yeah,
are they
that's
still all
funny.
part of this?
They're definitely like, we source, you know,
ideas off
feedback.
of them?
Yeah. So
Nice.
Rehan was actually,
He's a funny dude.
He's
Rehan's
hilarious.
a really funny dude.
He's a brilliant creative guy. And he actually wrote a lot of the skits that we did in the past. In fact, he wrote primarily most of the script for the Blair Khan project. And so, you know, he's always, you know, a huge, you know, a source of feedback and guidance for us still.
Wow. Yeah. He's always been a funny dude.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I remember when YMA used to do those, I think he did it like twice, like Saturday Night Live type thing, a whole show. Him and there were some other dudes, I can't remember their names, but they did a phenomenal job setting that up.
Oh,
it was
sure.
way ahead of his times. Obviously there were some uncles that didn't like it. I was way young though. I was like 7 or 8 years old when they did that, but I still had a good laugh. But he's always somebody that when I was little, I for some reason I always thought of him as like an Adam Sandler. I don't know why. And he
is funny.
Yeah, he's a funny dude. He's a funny dude. But as far as Islamica, what it was then and what it is now, you guys are a lot older now.
Yeah.
And you're in the sense, you guys have been kind of like in journalism, in comedic journalism for a while now. But is that actually what you do, or
no?
Like, and how much time do you spend writing? How much time do you guys spend on this, like weekly or monthly?
So
writing these Islamic articles. Yeah.
So the short answer is no. We're not. This is not our livelihood, right? And it's regretfully I say that because, you know, honestly, looking back, I think this could have been a much bigger thing, right? And there was a vision behind it. We can get into that later. So I am in the marketing tech world, right? I work in big data. Azhar works in advertising, right? And so there's obviously a cross section of creativity in both beautiful. Of those. And so Azhar is he's more on the digital side, right? So he provides like brands guidance and more from a high level scenario and more from a business based scenario. So, you know, it's not really part of our, you know, 9 to 5. Having said that, it is something that we pay attention to, you know, on the side still, and it has been compromised. I think there was a period where we went completely dark, right, for you know 7 years on and off, but it wasn't until 2014 where we really picked up and started pushing it a lot more. And so,
how many hours a day are you spending? Sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
How many hours a day or a week are you guys spending on your material and writing? And
you know, not so much. If I had to quantify the hours, maybe, you know, two hours at the most a day, right? Yeah. So it's, you know, you can't really build
2 hours a day is still a decent amount.
Yeah. And,
that's a lot.
And there's stuff that doesn't make out, right? I think, you know,
people don't understand that about content creators that. We've made so many different podcasts that we just had to scrap, like, it's not good,
right?
And you just have to eat that, you know.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's just like with anything.
But writing, it's just
hopefully this one won't have to be scrapped. Do you think?
No.
Hey, are you okay? We scrapped this, bro. Negative 15-degree
just
weather.
Green screen me and have me like fill it and put someone a little more high profile. Yeah. Just mute me every time I talk.
Just put like Yasser Qadhi's face over you,
or Louis C.K.
Yeah, just dub everything that I said.
Anyways,
that's not my voice.
Yeah, man. But especially with writing, man, because writing takes sometimes one idea can take a long time.
No, but I just want to pick your brain about it a little
sure,
bit. So this has been, y'all been in this game for like over 20 years.
Yeah. And I'm gonna make you 82.
I was thinking actually 100, but You mentioned like regrettably that you weren't able to push this. What do you, looking back, hindsight's 2020, but what would you have done differently, and what advice? And we're in the podcast, Muslims podcast game, we're like the OGs.
Yeah, right.
You know, like what, 5 years now?
Even though we weren't the OGs, I mean, there were other podcasts before us, but I think we've kind of pushed the term podcast to the forefront.
Even Diffuse Congruence, who like they're friends of ours, they've they consider us like the upper echelon, like the cream of the crop, right? You know, they'll openly say it. But
we drew inspiration from them too. Yeah. Well, I didn't have the chance to talk to Pervez and Zaki, but I listened to him when you told me about him. When I was first meeting Mahin, I was trying to get an anchor for the show, someone who would always do the introductions and everything, and who understood podcasting as well. Mahin's like, hey, do you listen to Diffuse Congruence? And I'm like, well, who's that? And so we definitely drew inspiration from that crowd as well.
They're very creative, man.
Yeah, but I was like, so looking back, what would you have done differently? What would you advise a platform like ourselves if we were, because that's the thing. It's like the limiting factor is always our day jobs, I think. Yeah. Right? As far as what we can do, as far as what we can accomplish. Our bandwidth is tied. You work a full day at work, you come home, you're tired, you got family commitments.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you're not making, it could be slow, that's fine. But if you're not making a progression towards replacing that and going into it full time, you're always limited, because someone at the end of the day, someone will.
The problem is I really think it's our upbringing, it's our Indian Pakistani background where we want that steadiness. We're not ready to put everything on the line like a lot of stand-up comedians do. Where we want to, this is my passion and I am going for broke, and I don't care what I don't care what anyone says about me. I don't care about. I'm not necessarily, my focus in life is not necessarily the wife, the kids, the healthcare, the salary.
Those are secondary for some people.
You some of the mainstream like Muslim comedians who are out there. They also do like 9-to-5s. Like I don't know if you know of a guy named Fahim Anwar. He's a stand-up comic out of. I think he's out of Austin.
Is he guys on a Rogan show recently?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So he I don't know if right now he's doing it, but for the longest time, he did stand-up comedy on the side, and he did his 9-to-5 at an IT company.
And he's still doing that.
I think he's kind of getting out of that now because he's getting much more well-known. He got a lot of exposure through Rogan.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to that podcast yet, so I want to listen to it.
He's another one. So you see, like a lot of people from our community, they're just maybe it's about pleasing your parents. I don't know, but there's different cultural elements that are making us not want to put it all on the line. I don't think you
gotta put it on the line though. I think there can be a plan to because people at our age, it would be it would be stupid for us to just quit our day jobs and just go for broke right now with our commitments. Yeah. If we were 20 and had no wives and kids and all that stuff. Yeah. But I think the way people would do it at our age is that they slowly, incrementally start and over a period of time, you're able to replace what you realize, well, I actually don't need 100K to live off. I can live off 70K.
Well, guys like Azhar Usman and other people, who else? Baba Ali, Dili Hussein, they all are doing it full time. They quit their whatever.
Dili's was he a mechanic or something?
He was selling cars on the side,
but he's a journalist too, though.
Yeah, he's a journalist, but he could actually go and get a real bona fide journalism job at a BBC or Sky News or whatever. Yeah. But he decided hey, I'm going to make a Muslim publication called 5 Pillars, and it's only going to deal with Muslim related news, whether it's in America, UK, or otherwise.
Well, I think it's a risk threshold, right? What is your own risk threshold? How much can you commit to? And a lot of that is the circumstances. If you've got a family, right? You've got a lot of dependencies, so you're not able to make those more aggressive sort of risky decisions. I think that has a lot to do with it. Azhar Usman is actually a great example because he. I don't know if anyone knows this or everyone knows this, but he was an attorney, right? Yep. He was a practicing attorney. In fact, he was our attorney to establish some of the legal operations for Islamica, right? Wow. And at that time, he was making the pivot into comedy, right? And so he decided early on, without any sort of mentorship, without any sort of guidance or anyone else kind of blazing that path to say, okay, I'm good at this and I'm going to commit to this in a more, full-time capacity, right? And, hindsight, you would probably say it was the right decision to make, right? Now he is involved in, higher level, production. He's producing things in collaboration with Mo Amer, who's a comedian.
Yeah. He opened
right?
for Dave Chappelle
and he opened for Dave Chappelle as well. And, I think he's got that relationship. So, for him, he took the biggest risk, right? Now, it's a generational thing. I think back to your point, this generation, seeing other people do it and make a livelihood off of, things like YouTube, right? Or make their livelihood off of digital different syndications. I think it's a lot easier. So if you're just getting into the game right now, or if you don't have a lot to risk, absolutely, the pathway is clear for you to commit to something more like this. For us, it was like, okay, this is something that I have to go against the grain. More importantly, I'm going against my parents' wishes and expectations. And so I'm taking a gamble. And if I fail at this, I'm going to have a lot of people looking at me and say, I told you so, right? That was the risk that we had to face back then. And so, it was a harder decision to make. Having said that, I don't think that, I think in hindsight, coming back to your question, I think in hindsight, had we recognized and truly believed what we thought and truly believed our instinct versus compromising it to societal expectations of us, I would say trusting your instincts would be a lot more powerful than, just trying to, appease, a generation that might not be familiar with
That's
with
some golden. That's some golden. Thank you, man. That's
It's interesting.
advice.
I was in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale, a few weeks back. I did some recordings there. I have another channel, and one of the guys is funny. It's like the parental pressure. It doesn't go away. Like I interviewed a guy who was actually a chess coach, and his top students are Dave Chappelle's kids.
What?
Right? So, but his mom is still writing him about his corporate job, even though he's married himself,
right?
And he's got two kids and all that stuff. But she's like, writing. He was telling me about how he had to move away from Ohio when he was coaching Chappelle's kids to do his MBA in Florida because his mom was like, so what? You coach Dave Chappelle's kids. It doesn't mean anything, and a bachelor's degree is worthless in our day and age, kind of thing. And and it was like, and I was kind of like, we were talking, and I was like, yeah, when my dad told me to get my MBA, I was like, I took a shot at it, and then I was like, but generally I'm a lot more abrasive when it comes to when people I think I try to understand that listen, people are gonna give you feedback on certain things that unless they're an expert on that field, they shouldn't, that opinion doesn't really mean anything, right? I think our parents mean well, but sometimes their circumstances were different, right? And it's not necessary. My dad to this day still is like, hey, you should get an MBA. I'm like, why? I'm like, why? Just so you can brag your, friends that your son's got an MBA. But the MBA, everyone's got a freaking MBA.
Right,
yeah, this sounds like a personal issue. Maybe we should talk about this offline, or maybe when we get a clinical psychologist to discuss it.
You got a therapy chair here? This?
No, this is my thing though, and. Alhamdulillah, I think our generation, we really are concerned with what our parents think about us.
Of course, yeah.
So when you were writing Islamica, were your parents did they know what you were doing, or did they he's doing his thing, he's writing articles, we don't really care about what he's doing, or they reading them like, dude, what is this about? What are you doing?
It's funny. I don't know if my parents certainly had exposure to half the things I did, if not 90% of the things I did as a kid, and rightfully, in both by default and by design. But they would hear from other people like, oh, what, we saw, your son and his friends doing this booth at ISNA, or he posted this thing, and he posed in a funny picture, and sometimes I use my own, we'll have to, there's not enough stock imagery to support our story, so I'll be the character, or Azhar will be the character, and so we saw your son, in this pose or whatever. And so I don't know if it's a moment of pride or a moment of humiliation and embarrassment. It's probably a little bit of both. But yeah, they're aware that this thing has happened, and they now, Islamica for at least my family, and I'm sure Azhar and Afif's families, is a household name, and they know that we do it.
Cool.
But we've always quelled any of their concerns or anxieties because they always were under the impression that it was a side thing and it was never our main thing. And so that I almost think was unfortunate, because had they been under the impression that it was a full-time livelihood, perhaps, and then we could have more confidence in pursuing it, right? Because I mean, here's the end. We're talking about vision and how, what do we got as far as timing goes?
Well, we got plenty of time.
Okay,
as much time as you want.
midnight.
I mean, we got to make Asr and Maghrib.
That's right. But I mean, right now, what doesn't exist is a unifying brand that Muslims can rally around, right?
Yeah.
We're still rallying around non-Muslim brands like Nike, Adidas, and Puma, and maybe they've got some great social alignment, social causes, and I'm not dismissing any of their efforts to embrace the Muslim community in certain capacities. So full encouragement on that, and more importantly, a kudos to the Muslims who became involved to make those brands sensitive and aware to a lot of the Muslim plight. Having said that, we need our own Muslim brand, right? We need our own Muslim brand that we can really rally around and be truly sensitive and really, make the Muslim condition better on a global level, right? Because at the end of the day, Nike is going to have plants in China that is completely unaware about the Uyghur, situation, right? And so it's going to be, a reactionary sort of dynamic, and that doesn't make sense. And so we have yet to see that. We would like have Islamica to be that brand, but if it can't be that brand, then someone somewhere needs to step in and be that brand. That has that cool factor, and then also in the athletic world, maybe perhaps be that de facto brand to kind of even design uniforms and things like that.
You've seen like 5 pillars out of California, and then I don't know,
there's some efforts,
and then Tone Trump from Philadelphia, who's got a brand called Muslim Dawn.
Yeah.
So you see that.
I think we need like a cute little name. You know how like we have the trend is with a lot of branding. It's like a 4-letter name. You have to have something cute, small, like Hulu or something small in terms of a brand name. I think too many are, including the Mad Mamluks. Everything is just a mouthful. It's just I don't know.
That's why we went to TMM, I think, right? That's why it makes sense why a lot of people just prefer saying TMM instead of the Mad Mamluks.
Yeah, true.
Mamluks.
Yeah.
Well, and it also has to just be kind of cute too. Like we were on this new app called Stereo, where we were talking to just regular people and having fun conversations.
Sure.
And we met someone who was telling us about some scholar he listens to called Hoblos.
Yeah, Oblos.
Muhammad Hoblos.
Hoblos, yeah.
Australia.
So I thought that
you I
thought that last name was so
this guy
cute.
was trolling. You're such a punk, bro.
I literally thought that he said
No. Hold on.
Humble.
No. Let me tell the story.
Let
me tell it. So we get
this brother's in Australia.
No, he's in the UK, bro. Sometimes Sim embarrasses the heck out of me, bro. So I call him up. I leave my parents' house. My parents had this squirrel problem where squirrels are trying to get into their living room. They literally made a hole in their living room.
This is last night?
It was last night. Okay. So I call him up from there. I'm leaving the house. It's cold, so I call him on stereo. I was like, I found out there's a feature where you can call somebody who has stereo. Stereo is an app, right, where you can talk to people, just audio. And the people who are listening can press a button, max for a minute, ask you a question, or it's like an old talk show, right? Old school talk show. So I call up Sim. I'm like, hey, Sim, what am I calling you on? And this and that. I made it private. I can send it to you guys. He goes, yeah, so I'm talking to you on stereo, and we're talking. We're like, hey, what's going on? How you liking this app? Just shooting the breeze with him. So a guy from the UK that I started following, he asked a question. I was like, so what are you up to, Abdi? His name was Abdi Saleh. What are you up to? How you doing? This. And he's like, he presses record, and he starts recording. He's like, yeah, I'm listening to a scholar by the name of Muhammad. I think his name is Hanbal Himblo or something. He's like that. And then Sim responds like, oh, you're listening to Ahmed ibn Hanbal? I was like, wait, what? I was like, why are you trolling this dude? And this dude started taking it seriously. He doesn't know Sim. He's like, no, his name is Ablos. And he had like 4 recordings of just defending himself now. And this punk in the back is just laughing. Who's going to listen to Ahmed ibn Hanbal, bro? You know what I'm saying? So that dude actually,
maybe the
you
new
made him feel
TV series.
uncomfortable. Huh?
The TV series that just came, that's pretty new.
He's like, I'm listening to a religious talk of the guy who yells a lot. That's what he said. The guy who yells a lot.
He does. Muhammad Hoblos yells a lot, yeah.
So that's what he does. He's been trolling people for a long time. So that's why he's been talking about this for the past like 5 months. He said, we got to the Islamica guys.
So every time, by the time, and Amar's actually
we troll. We're classic trolls.
Amar's trying to leave to go to Target, and So I get in my head like every time he's about to finish the conversation, I'm going to restart it to prevent him from going. So
we did that assalamu alaikum thing. You know when you meet somebody at the masjid, go assalamu alaikum, you guys start talking. Okay, guys, say assalamu alaikum.
Right.
Do this. He did that like 5 times with me.
So I'm like, it'd just be fun messing with it. So one of the things he does is every time he catches me off guard, like he makes a comment about the Jordans I'm wearing. I only have one pair of Jordans. He's like, "Oh, nice Jordans," or
every time I see him, I say that.
So it's just an annoying thing he does all the time. So I'm like, you know what? I gotta think of a different way to annoy him, and he doesn't realize that I'm doing it though. So I was just like, how about at the end of the conversation when we're right about to hang up the phone, I start another conversation.
Because I'm waiting for other people in the queue that want to talk to me, and this guy keeps on saying, "Okay, man." And after he says "Assalamu alaikum," he starts asking new stuff.
So just new ways. It's just new ways to mess with each other and be creative and just help the creative process. Even though it's only a few pittance, maybe 2-3 people who are listening to us on this app. But I'm just like, how do you increase creativity, and how do you get your mind thinking in different ways to make people laugh and be dynamic, right?
Yeah, I wonder how that is with you guys, since you guys are all satire and comedic writing. How is that with you guys? You guys,
In what sense?
give us a little insight of
like sharpening your tools, like
the way you guys make fun of each other,
and looking at different things in a funny way, so that you can extrapolate humor from it, and
for sure,
and make people laugh.
Well, I think that the most important part is recognizing those moments, right? Recognizing those patterns, and being able to present those in a funny way, right? Every encounter is and I'm searching for a story that we wrote, but we wrote a number of different stories. It just happened where if it's a hug, or if it's a handshake, or if it's even a cultural expression, we recognize those moments, and then we'll lampoon them.
Well, what's some material that you have coming here and meeting us, and what would you write about?
I can't tell you that right now.
No.
You gotta read about that, man. I'm just collecting data right now. It's all a data collection process.
If you were to write something right now, though, what would you focus on? One thing.
Wouldn't it be like
experience?
I'm not telling.
How about COVID-19? Shouldn't that have given you guys a lot of material to work with in terms of
yeah.
Do you guys have something in the works of COVID?
We have so much. I mean, I think we wrote. I mean, we've been writing on COVID, right? We've been writing on COVID at the national level, right? So we don't just do Muslim-based comedy. It's also we're all of us in this room are Americans, right? So everything our government does affects us, right? And it's also going to be relevant. And so we've gone after Trump time after time, because that's easy. I mean, every comedy writer is going to say that. We've gone after him. We've also gone after the hospital. We've also gone after the masjids, right? The masjids that refused to shut down, right, during COVID, and the imam turning around, he's like, "Please line up shoulder to shoulder, virus to virus," right? And so those sort of things that we can adapt to, and there's that's just a small slice of it. But we've gone after I think we've exhausted COVID, but COVID's got a lot.
But you guys are probably always reading the news and all that kind of stuff too, right? All the time. What type of news do you guys read, and what do you guys use for
I'm on Instagram right now, by the way, so I just
there's your page on Instagram.
Yeah. So if anyone can hold this up.
I saw this.
All right.
That's the one I thought
Lord
you guys
Moonsighting
actually. So
declares Eid for the hell of it.
So this one in particular, right? Let me talk about this one.
Yeah.
So Board Moon Sighting Committee declares Eid for the hell of it. All right. The Eid Committee is, this black hole committee that we hear about maybe 2 times a year, right? And no one knows who they are. They're like silhouettes or shadowy figures that post, or you'll hear. And back in the day, you had to call people up and figure out, Aj Eid hai, or whatever the process was. But now, you've got this committee, but you don't know who they are. They don't have names to their faces. They're just known as the Hilal Committee, or whatever community it is. And so, what do they do in their off season? Right? What does the Eid committee?
That's such a cool observation. Yeah.
Right? What do firefighters do when there's no fire? Right? And so, what does this Eid committee do? Do they just sit around? Do they play cards? So this was a story. Actually, this one is a long form story. So there's actually pros behind it.
I like to play on words with the board. Because when I saw that, I was like, board. It kind of reminds you like a masjid board.
Yeah,
at the same
board.
time.
Yeah,
board.
Right,
I was like, that was pretty genius.
Yep.
Let's scroll through some more of these, man. Let's get a nice explanation from this guy.
Yeah,
hey, Sim, scroll through some more of this, man, please.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do this. This would be dope with him here.
over dramatic wasn't really ripping.
So this is let me kind of connect the dots on the experience, right? We've all been at the masjid. We've been sitting there as the muezzin is calling the adhan, and the adhan is a call to prayer for those who aren't familiar. And so you're sitting there, and it's always on a voluntary basis, right? There's no real qualifier to kind of filter out the right person to give adhan. It's whoever's available. And so I've sat through some amazing adhan, and then I've actually sat through some where people are like going nuts with their vocals, right? And they're really challenging their vocals, and some of it is just like, wow, this monologue. So this one is about a guy. This is actually me, but this is about a theater major that decides to give the adhan.
That's a picture of you?
That's a picture of me.
Get out.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh.
Yeah. You can't tell?
It looks like Mr. Bean.
I remember that.
I can't tell. But anyways, yeah, go ahead, bro.
So anyhow, this guy basically is a theater major. So he's volunteered for like community theater. He's done a lot of musicals. And so he's like a thespian. He's like going into, he's like doing like as a musical. And so, it talks about him just like basically doing it to different tunes like Ave Maria, and then he turns around and bows at the end, and people are showering him with flowers and everything. But this is obviously exaggerated, but it's one of those.
Well, we have I don't know if you've ever been to the ICW mosque in Wheaton.
Yeah.
Our imam has some pipes there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Sheikh Ibrahim Dardasawi, you ever hear him?
Oh no, I think the guys at Wheaton are awesome.
Yeah. Ibrahim Dardasawi is
Faisal did a residency at Wheaton as well.
Sheikh Hammer actually found some videos of him in Jordan, doing like recitals and like.
Because he's a nasheed artist too, so his voice is out of this world. Yeah.
Oh no, those guys that actually are awesome, man.
This is my favorite one, by the way. Instagram, if you're on there, says area man begins mining for butt coin.
Yo,
early Saturday evening, Ali Mustafa
that's on Instagram.
developed a sudden urge to mine for butt coin. 39-year-old system architect revealed he had an itch for the operation. As he strategically established his mining positions, trying to manage the energy-intensive task.
Hilarious.
Hodl was like
that's hold. That's the Bitcoin hold.
Hold.
Yeah.
Mumbled Mustafa
It's like
himself
subtle but hold.
as he awkwardly contorted his body and reached deeply into his blockchain. As of late evening, it was unclear if Mustafa had produced
Is this you?
any
You wrote this?
booty
Get
tokens.
out!
So I thought. So I posted.
I
this.
love that you can look at it and laugh.
Tonight.
No, I always wanted to see this. Somebody who writes their material and laughs at material, dude, that's gold. I've never seen that.
I don't know
before.
if that's good. That's like
That's
laughing
a
at your own
great thing.
jokes. Which
No.
is not,
I always wanted to see somebody who writes material and read it and laugh around people.
You gotta take yourself out.
That's dope, dude.
Yeah. But so this actually I posted last night, and this I was sure I'm like, those Mad Mamluks guys, they're gonna say hell no. You guys, you're disqualified. You're not coming in.
This is so funny.
Wait, I'm actually.
So
I don't know. Wait.
Hold on. Is that you in the picture?
That's stock photography. Yeah. That's stock photography.
Okay.
Oh my! I hope this isn't about me.
No.
He's a systems administrator, 39 years
He's a
old.
sysadmin.
This was actually we took from your LinkedIn. We just filtered or changed the name. Yeah.
Has a podcast on the side. Yeah.
Does it really say
No,
a podcast
no,
on
no,
site?
Is it up there?
No. No, but I do.
Hold on,
Bitcoin.
wait. Can you go to this other one? Who's this? Is that Jeff Bezos over there?
Yeah, that's Jeff Bezos. So he's like past his Amazon Prime. So this was when he was resigned, right? So you know how someone's past their prime. So Jeff, in his resignation letter, he's like, I guess you could say I'm past my Amazon Prime.
That's pretty dope. I like that. I like the play on words, brother.
There's a lot of like this one. This was during the GameStop pump and dump, right? So
Game is stop. Okay, so for people who are not Indian, they don't understand that. A lot of our parents and people from India, they don't know how to say stop, or they always have an E right before it. It's stop.
Stop. Yeah.
So
He's loving this. Wow, he loving
Wait,
this.
have you not read it? This will be awesome for you then.
No,
Hopefully.
the Instagram I just found out about.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah.
Instagram is funnier because it's in meme format,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we found that long form articles. This generation, man,
Yeah.
the average attention span is 8 seconds. Believe
That's
it or not,
crazy.
Yeah.
8 seconds.
If you did TikTok, you could go crazy.
Yeah, so that's one thing, but man, it's video. Man. It's a whole different beast.
Yeah, it is a whole different beast.
Yeah.
These guys are writers.
I would
bro.
love to, but it can't. You can't. There's no way of not doing yourself in TikTok, right? Because you have to put yourself out there. And I'm only like
I might volunteer to be an actor.
oh yeah, man.
No, these guys are
Be a
writers, though, man.
personality, man. It's a recruitment exercise as much as it is. Yeah, I mean, so some of the more Muslim-specific ones on there are kind of stand out.
Just getting stuff in foods.
Let's see here.
That's dope, dude. I like this, man.
Oh yeah, this one.
Server just waited 18 seconds ago.
Yeah.
No.
Well, here's the first vice president in history to smell like kamasana and samosas.
This is
Kamal auntie.
Oh yeah, this one was got a lot of.
Allahu Akbar.
This was
I saw
like
this meme before, actually.
This was like those ironic moments, right, where like at the end of the movie, right before the credits, like the real suspect turns, like the Kaiser Sose, right, turns on the usual suspects. He turns.
Oh
on
my God! This is everyone has this. If anyone who's Indian Pakistani out there who has their parents on WhatsApp, they've been through this.
Yeah.
The uncle who forwards 1,000 WhatsApp conspiracies. Man, I have uncles who are scientific people.
Oh, of course.
People who are intelligent people. They're
It's
not like
mind-boggling.
they're not nutty
Yeah.
people. They've been
Yeah.
educated and they have really prestigious positions
It's mind-boggling. Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
They have all kinds of nutty opinions related
No, bro,
to.
you know what's even crazier? I had to tell some of my relatives, right, to stop because of their anxiety issues they were having, and especially during COVID.
It's terrible,
And making
yeah.
up fake stuff and like these fake things, like take mustard oil and rub it on your
Yeah.
eyes, rub it in your ears, put it in your nails, and you can't get COVID. I was like, wait, what? And they're sending all this stuff, and they're up all night sending these things. I was like, dude, why are you sending these at 2 a.m. to me, dude? You should be sleeping. That's why you have so much anxiety. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
It is
insane.
pretty
It's
terrible, yeah.
mind-boggling to me because like these are people who would normally have taken the recommendation from their medical professional and things like that. Now they're just like mass forwarding ridiculous advice, medical advice, and this is stuff like that's directly related to their health, the most important thing about them, and they're just taking it from. And then I tried to tell my mom, I'm like, Mom, I could literally make up anything right now and I could forward it to myself and just forward it to you, thinking that, and you would think that it's advice that's coming from a medical professional when it's just me making up stuff and just trying to send.
Here's what makes it believable, especially for that generation, and they're probably one of the best generations,
of course,
compared to especially what we're seeing today. But having said that, in their lifetime, there was a barrier to entry to get things on print, right? If you wanted to print a story, there was an editorial process. It was expensive to print, right? And so it would only be the qualified information that made it into print. Now that anyone can publish anything, but still they're under that old adage or that old impression that anything in print is authentic. And so when they see that, either in an email forward or in a WhatsApp forward, that by default they're approaching it with this is this is
really happening.
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. So I mean, and so this back back to that article, it's instead of QAnon, it's QAnon, right? And he's everyone's uncle that keeps forwarding like all these random things, so people get.
We all know some of those.
Do you guys have kids that are like old enough to understand this?
So Azhar has kids. Actually, both Afif and Azhar has kids that enjoy it at some level. Obviously, they're not into the deeper pieces, but I think the obviously like funny sounds or someone acting goofy, there's that appreciation. But I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah, because I'm always wondering. I don't know if you think about this, like when our kids get like Sim's kids are fairly old, but like how our kids get older, how they're gonna like digest some of our content.
Yeah, that's something you got to think about. That's something you always got to think about.
Well, I don't know which angle you're going. I mean, if you got to think twice before you publish it, or if it's something that they'll certainly appreciate, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking this guy's gonna have to erase a lot of his content. If you're thinking about your kids, bro, you gotta wipe out everything you ever said. I'm joking, bro. You be all right, inshallah, man. You're gonna be all right.
Whenever someone says that at the very end, you gotta be worried, man. You gotta be worried.
You gotta sandwich it,
Yeah. I mean,
But at the end, you should be okay.
Yeah. I mean,
that was a good one. I like that accent. That's a dope accent.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll be. It's hard to say. Hadi is Hadi is my oldest. She's 7.
Gotcha.
She's very.
TMI.
Yeah. What's the word I'm looking? Very observant and is able to like pick things apart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember that from some of the recordings that you did.
You know, the kind of questions she asks me and stuff. So
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
When she asks me, and now she has a bad habit of trying to stop. Like I'm texting somebody, she likes to reach over and like see what I'm texting, and they'll start asking about certain words, like what's that word there?
Knowing my
You know.
Well, I think that's a sensitivity. That's just it's gonna be there regardless.
Yeah, man.
You know.
So what? So give us a little bit of insight, man. What do you guys got going now, man? Like, give us a little bit. What's in the works, man?
So what's in the works? So there's a lot of cutting room floor stuff that we haven't really I'll say polished up. So we still have parodies that we did in the past. So back in the day, there was this show on Fox called When Animals Attack.
I love that show.
Yeah,
I love that show.
So
the deer. I remember the deer hitting the whole dude's
the deer was the biggest. I think that's the most iconic scene, right? That's a clip they show over and over again. So we did a parody, and you know how these Hafiz teachers, especially when I was growing up, these Hafiz teachers, Quran teachers would basically come over, and if you got something wrong, they'd slap you. They hit you.
Oh, yeah.
That was somehow that was acceptable.
It was
right?
totally okay.
It was like our parents gave them.
Because our parents got beat when they went to school.
Yeah, exactly. And so like a strange man hitting your kid for some reason, it was okay. So anyhow, we grew up with that. So we made a parody when Hafiz is attack, right? So basically it was like these.
So this isn't released yet, or it's released?
No, it hasn't been released yet, but we have all the footage and it's basically ready to go. Fahad Siddiqui was actually a part of that.
No
when
way.
He was in his teens, right?
Yeah.
And so he was one of the kids that got beat up.
Yeah.
Fahad
Siddiqui.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he's one. He should have been a comic.
Oh, he's hilarious.
He's so funny.
We grew up with so many people who could have been comedians, like
course.
stand-up comics.
Yeah.
Just incredibly talented. It's just our culture brought them back down to earth. And
How often
kept
you talk to Fahad Siddiqui?
I mean, we're Facebook friends. I talk to the Hami on a very frequent basis, and Rehan on a very frequent basis. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because Fahad Siddiqui has a certain thing with me. He always you want a secret handshake? So he has a secret handshake thing with me.
Nice.
If you bring it up to him, he'll laugh really hard.
Okay.
Yeah. Fahad Siddiqui.
If you're listening out there, comment on the comment section.
Fahad's a funny dude, man.
Yes, he's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So when Hafiz attack.
When Hafiz attack. So that's one of them. But we're also trying to get more into video. So to your point, TikTok, it's a whole, avenue and a medium that's ripe for it. I still don't think there's enough like satire that hits it on the head. There's no Muslim satire right now that exists outside of Islamica. There have been that have come and gone, but there's just not one that's active right now. But so video is a big effort, especially like breaking news alerts. So in the studio, and just these small news briefs and so video forms of some of these articles are basically how there's a YouTube channel of a kid opening up gift boxes, right?
Yeah.
So we have one skit that there's a Desi kid who is opening up like just basically these discouraging quotes from his parents. Like he opens it up, he's all excited, and then he opens it up, he's like, are you doctored yet? Right? And the kid's 4 years old, right? So it's just him unboxing all this,
do you guys make any videos of like your ideation sessions between you guys or anything, or like just like kind of like behind the scenes type stuff?
No, but that's a great idea.
I would watch the heck out of that, bro.
It would be.
I would love that kind of. I love that kind of.
You just set up a camera and just
just of course you don't have to alter material, but it's just like I would love to know how they do it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like some parts of it, I think that would be really cool.
And one of the things I know, like a lot of people have asked us, like, hey, do you guys have like background meetings and stuff like that? Like we do once in a while when there's like important things happening, but
not for this one.
Yeah,
though.
No. Well, it's this thing.
Not
like,
for this podcast.
Normally.
Joke.
You're horrible.
Clearly,
you're a
clearly no one's screaming.
Hey, bro, I'm feeling extremely comfortable. I have you and him in front of me, bro. Yeah. And I learned a lot of this dark humor from you, bro.
Yeah,
because of you, Dad. Because of you.
So, and I think we're so restricted, especially with our family and 9 to 5, that we just don't have a lot of the ability to do all the cool things other content creators who are full-time comics or YouTubers or whatever are able to present. Like a lot of people do those what are those things called
Vlogs.
They have vlogs, right?
Yeah.
Vlogs.
So
Maheen
they
has
did
a
the
vlog.
No.
Maheen has our New York vlog going to New Jersey.
I still have
Remember that,
that footage. I
Maheen?
still
From
have
7
it.
years ago?
No, that stuff like so. I was like, I looked into that. Like the vlog, that stuff is so hard. Like it's so time intensive.
Yeah, it is.
Like editing a podcast is not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even a video podcast that's on stick, because like when I edit my video podcast I travel with and stuff, it's not terrible. You once you figure out your workflow, you bounce back and forth between your different angles. Vlogging is another beast.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy that was Casey Neistat. He's like the guy that doing a daily vlog.
Right.
His schedule was insane.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
He was editing till 1 a.m. and waking back up at 5. He was
Yeah.
sleeping 4 hours a night.
Plus, you start a lot of people have this syndrome where they develop this artificial life so their life now revolves all around this vlogging.
Yeah.
I met people that personally who kind of go through this, but a lot of those YouTubers, man, that
it's
are
like you gotta have a camera tied to your wrist.
bro, and not only that,
yeah.
their life, some of them can't differentiate between their real life and their vlogging life anymore.
It's like the Truman
No,
Show.
it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even. You need to hire people. Like some of
Yeah.
these YouTubers have gone so big that they have people who are just dedicated to editing. Like they've stopped editing, and they are doing is thinking of ideas and content, and trying to put together the actual presentation. While there's other people in the background who are. I know, like for example, the guy from Unbox Therapy. I don't know if you guys have watched Unbox Therapy,
yeah.
but he's got 4 or 5 different people that he's hired. He's that huge of a YouTube channel that
That's a dope
he's
channel.
just hiring people now
Yeah.
who can. If you look at his set, it looks like a freaking news channel now.
Yeah, it does.
It's insane.
There are a couple that my wife and I follow on YouTube. They're called Kara and Nate. They're travel vloggers. They did this thing where they had to visit 100 countries, right?
What?
It was sick.
That's nice.
But like they did all themselves. Like they would actually show their background footage of them editing, because they would do their thing and they wouldn't release a video every day, but like once a week they'd release a video because they're doing all their footage, and then like they're doing behind the scenes of like Kara editing the thing. And they started making their money off some sponsorships, and like she sold a course on how to video edit vlogs in Premiere, right?
Yeah.
Recently they only opened it back up. They opened it up. They're hiring people now. They're hiring a video editor. I saw, but like they put out like tons of content. I don't know if they're at 1 million views by now. I mean, but
So there's nobody anymore that just takes vlogs and just posts them up and doesn't even edit them?
but people like there's a demand for it. I don't think for us it's like it's worth the effort, right?
I see what you're saying.
I feel like if in an ideal world, if we didn't have to worry about money, doing vlogging wouldn't, like, occasionally, sure, but like really people are, you just produce more, you produce the content that people already like
Like
More of it.
Mirza said, 8 seconds of attention. That's what you have. You're in the TikTok world now. You're even having a long form podcast.
Yeah.
You know, you're competing against people who and now you're having a generation of people who have even shorter attention spans. Okay. This is what we're up against, and this is what you're doing on Instagram is brilliant with the kind of pseudo meme.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily
it's all meme format,
it's not purely a meme, but it's actually kind of a story, Islamica. Embedded behind a meme, right? So if people want to read a little bit more about that caption, you can actually get some more humor out of it. I think that's the cool thing about that style of Instagramming that you're doing, as opposed to just scrapping it all together and just going meme only.
Right. Yeah. Well, we recognize, it's unfortunate that we live in a meme generation, right? Where like all your perspectives are defined by memes, right? That's the unfortunate. Yeah. Having said that, you kind of have to adapt in the digital culture, right?
Yeah.
And so, to your point, I think if you read the Onion, you know that 90% of the punchline is actually in the headline and the supporting image, right?
Yeah.
And so that formula plays also consistently with our approach to Instagram.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, man.
And so,
but don't you think that I have two things? Like, don't you think that people are it's kind of changing, the tides are changing, and people are going back to podcasting or like longer form things because they're interested in information?
There are,
right?
and there is definitely a market. I'm not saying podcasts are dead or anything like that. I'm just saying, from what I've seen, at least with my kids and their friends, and the general population, we're not talking about the few intelligent people who listen to long form podcasts and things like that. I'm talking about the masses. Okay, the masses. You see it. The proof is in the pudding. Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah,
it's what people with entertainment that has just snippets.
Yeah.
Snippets.
Instant gratification, small snippets.
Oh, yeah.
What about you guys? Have you guys considered doing like a podcast, like a format, or like videos of just like talking and just like messing around, joking around?
Yeah, we've explored the idea, but you know what? I mean, looking at this setup, there is a barrier to entry to having a quality podcast, right? And for me, and I'm sure for the other guys, whatever we do, we want to present a quality product, and perhaps that's inhibiting us to get into it. Having said that, we feel like we have more than enough material to carry us through, at least 1 year's worth of subjects and topics.
Because with you guys, sorry to cut you off. When I see just your demeanor and the way you talk, I kind of like see like a parody, like journalist at reporting on news.
I see you as a parody.
No,
you're like a cartoon, cartoon version of
you guys make a parody of like news, of like standing outside of a building and just like reporting and stuff like that. Yeah. Have you guys ever seen those guys? The husbands of Target parking lot those guys.
Yeah.
Yo,
those are hilarious.
I think you guys can pull off something like that too.
Yeah.
Those guys are so funny, bro.
Wait, the husbands of who?
Oh, dude, can you pull this up? Can you play this on YouTube?
Is that the dad's video you sent us?
The dad's, yeah.
The one dad?
The dad who goes to Target. He like their wives go shopping at Target, and they just end up like meeting in the parking lot, and they end up just becoming friends, and they like party inside of a van while their wives are in Target.
No,
bro,
I saw something. I saw someone really creative on TikTok. They've just formed a little sketch or a little series of comedy where they're like the cart police. So they wait for people who are not putting their shopping cart back in the cart corral.
Yeah.
And he comes up to him and like, beep, 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 beep. Cart police. And like, he's not even hired by anyone. But it's so funny.
Some people actually believe it though.
Yeah, some people actually like are taking him seriously. Like, oh, I'm sorry about it. Some people are really jerks. And it's so fun. It's just cute and creative. And it's like simple. And he's like, he's got quite a bit of following on TikTok.
He does. Yeah, that kind of stuff is hilarious.
Mort sent a question in, by the way. Mort's our other co-host. Can you ask Mirza if he's willing to play Mufti Abu Layth for a skit?
I can see where he's getting that from.
Yeah,
slippery slope.
No, I don't. Can you know where he's coming from? Can you?
If he's willing to do a parody of Mufti Abu Layth, basically.
Yeah. Do you know Mufti Abu Layth?
I do, but I'd have to like understand his mannerisms in order to do it. What is it?
No. In terms of a writing or like
I don't know. He's like if he's willing to like act out. Like, Mort, are you there? Message me back immediately.
So
he can elaborate.
One thing
you just gave him some material. He's gonna write about this, bro.
Yeah. I've got a ton.
Well, one thing I was always curious about was when your parody is maybe too close to something that's very controversial happening in the community.
Sure.
I don't know, like for example, there's been instances of the predator imam, someone who's like a little too comfortable with the kids or whatever,
right. Yeah.
So did you guys ever like think about, well, are we kind of blurring the line between reality and what's actually parody?
Oh yeah, I mean, reality sometimes hands you an exaggerated form of itself already, right? I mean, if anything, the past 4 years have taught us that, right? Is that you couldn't have thought of a more exaggerated comedy premise than what you saw in the administration in the past, right? So that plays also well in the Muslim community, right? There's a lot of those characters, and there's a lot of taboo topics as well. We've covered them, if they're too sensitive, obviously, like I think we wrote an article that talked about someone, I think someone killing themselves, right? But it was like, to the point where they were agonized about something, and we got a lot of backlash for that because someone said, I don't think you guys should, make light of suicide. And we were very receptive to it. And we said, okay, you know what? We didn't think of that. And so we retracted the story. But, coming back to yours, we have touched topics. It's tough to truly make light of a lot of sensitive issues, and I think that's probably the appropriate guideline. But for some of the stuff where we can actually say, okay, this is happening, but if it's a form of exaggeration, then how can we actually make it a something and turn it into entertainment, that's where the editorial process has to take it over and actually filter it and say, okay, is it making fun of a terrible situation? We don't want to do that, right? Unnecessary, create any sort of anxiety or facade and
sometimes
in
you have to check yourself too.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
too
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But having said that, satire isn't always humorous, right?
Yeah.
Satire is, I mean, if you look at traditional if you look at the original satire was actually just a social commentary on the current reality, and that was presented in a alternative way. But it wasn't this concept of satire has to be funny. I think is more of a modernized version of satire, but it's actually a social commentary. So there's a lot of stuff that we presented in a more serious light. So we talked about the Palestinian plight, and we've talked about that in a more serious tone. But talked about also. So the shirt I'm wearing actually is a Palestinian football club, right? It's about. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Wait, they have football clubs in the bled?
Yeah.
They
It's
do.
got football club. Yeah.
Nice.
So basically, it's a kid
Kicking
kicking
a tank.
a rock into a tank, right? And so basically,
That's pretty dope.
That's because it's obviously impoverished Gaza doesn't have they don't even have the permission to kind of make some of these more internationally competitive teams. So it's about a kid kicking a rock into a tank, right? And so we'll tackle those sensitive topics, but we'll present it in a more serious alternative way, in a more deeper way than just making a joke out of it. But that's very rare. It doesn't represent a big portion of our content, but it's certainly there.
One of the problems I had in at least writing comedy was that I would nest my jokes, and I think only a writer will understand this, where you're trying to nest too much comedy into instead of making it simple and just making someone laugh, you're nesting different layers of humor into it and just complicating things more.
Yeah.
Do you know what that problem, what I'm talking about?
What is nesting? What is that?
You're just kind of trying to add too many layers of comedy into something that just should be simple and make someone laugh, right?
The reader has to think too much to laugh, basically.
Or not necessarily think too much, but you're just trying to add too much into your too many
When it's not meant
layers.
to be that much, yeah.
Yeah, you want to appeal to something very basic. You want to deliver your point and move on to the next subject. But when you add layers of comedy, you just lose the listener. And that's one of the things I struggle with, at least when I was writing and trying to make funny bylines and stuff like that behind a meme or something. You just you're overthinking it.
Oh yeah, you can't over-engineer a joke, right?
Yeah.
If you overcomplicate it, you lose your audience. You have to consider the universality of it, and you also have to think about the word combination, wordplay, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that it's a methodology that goes into our headline writing. Not only is the idea, not only does the idea have to be funny, but it has to be worded in a very terse and succinct way to deliver it right. If you consider timing as a huge component to a good joke, that very well plays into the written expression, how you phrase it and how quickly, how many syllables. In fact, I count the syllables in my headlines in order to deliver it in the most immediate way, right? Not trying to circumvent or not trying to make those headlines too wordy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're getting at.
Exactly.
Right? Is the other the other aspect of it is that from the perspective of is your humor more local based? Like there's a lot of Chicago humor.
Yeah.
But if you have a global audience, that's not going to necessarily work. So you've got to filter those and make it a lot more.
I remember the beginning. Remember the TMM? He used to call us out a lot on that. I'm glad you did, because we used to have a lot of these inside jokes that we'd just be doing on air.
Yeah.
And then after you get older, you think about it. You're like, man, that who's gonna get that except for like maybe 10 people? You know?
Yeah. Like, I mean, right now we're pretty good at it. Like, for example, earlier this episode, we mentioned some local guys, right? Some common friends. In the past, we would do it a little just too much, right? And and I would like be editing all that stuff out because I'm like, guys,
there's only like 2 minutes worth of show.
Yeah.
And like 56
I'm like,
minutes.
guys, we can't do this.
Yeah.
You're going to lose the listener. They don't know these people. It's not even like someone who's a celebrity within Muslims. And so just going through that process.
Yeah, you don't know me? You don't know me? Yeah, you don't know me? You know me?
So that was something that we would always like, these guys would, get a few. I mean, I wasn't like hard on anyone, but I think we just like would talk about it after the show, like, hey, these are things we got to be cognizant of. We want to make sure that people are included in what we're doing. It's not necessarily that it's just us and that, hey, you're taking a peek into our lives, but you're kind of feel like you're sitting there in your living room. If you're watching us on some YouTube app on your Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, that you're part of what's happening.
That's right.
And that's what the feedback I got from listeners when they would give us that kind of a compliment, like, hey, I feel like I'm part of your friendship or your group of friends, and that's what I really wanted to get out of it.
That's a nice feeling too, though. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because
that is.
And I think one of the things related to what you were talking about related to headlines was that when you're making that byline or headline, was that in my mind, like, I want to deliver some kind of tone with our native, like maybe a Boston accent, and overly complicating things and deviating from what our actual style is, what people are expecting our byline to be.
Right.
And so that was one of the things that I learned, that, you need to kind of stay consistent with your style.
That's right, yeah.
It doesn't necessarily you don't have to be, dogmatic about it, that, but you should be comfortable enough with a certain style of humor, and you're going to lose people if you start going into things that they're not really necessarily familiar with about you.
Oh yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
So that's so the flavor of the of Islamic of parody publications is always consistent. So I guess what I've kind of noticed over the years is always, like, just like how you said, the syllables and the manner of delivery is always consistent, and people know what they're going to get.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, we try to maintain that consistency. But having said that, you always, I think, as any artist, you always want to give yourself enough leeway to allow yourself to experiment a little as well, right?
Yeah.
And also find different audiences. So what we've done, especially since 2014, is we tried to make the comedy, because the lowest hanging fruit back in the day was any cultural sort of joke, got the laughs, right? But now I think, our audience has evolved, and I think the bar has been raised to really work and make your jokes a little more and make your content a little more sophisticated, and have a little more quality thinking behind it. And so what we've done is we've generalized it, we've elevated it, I'll say, to more of a not just a South Asian audience, a South Asian Muslim audience, but more of a Muslim non-Muslim audience, right? But more specifically non-Muslim audience. And what's remarkable is that we have an audience that overlaps with the Onion now that we're seeing, right, in our circulation.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
We've got people that kind of really enjoy that satirical content. But then we also have been able to deliver an educational experience. So I go back and forth with a lot of folks on the on some of the direct messaging, where because of Islamica news, I didn't know what your rituals were around worship. I didn't know the concept that you guys had to do wudu or ablution before it. You guys seem like you're very hygienic, and I didn't know half of these terms and what they meant. And I'm much more educated as a non-Muslim about Islam, right? And I'm not going to say by any means that we're trying to deliver a dawah product, because we're not the Tablighi Jamaat. In fact, I think the Tablighi Jamaat has blacklisted us. Right? but we there is a secondary appreciation to making your content more accessible, because you're going to find an audience that you never imagined would be there when you when you're initially kind of starting out. Right?
Yeah. One question I completely forgot to ask in the beginning, but where does the name Islamica come from? It's very simple. It's got a nice ring to it. So how did you guys come up with
copied it from that other magazine.
Yeah, exactly. Those were the OGs.
Those were the OGs.
Yeah. And we just ripped the cover and just duct taped it onto one of our shirts. No, actually, we were there before they were, I
was going to say that.
Yeah. So but the Islamica as an adjective was used to describe Islamic art, right? And I think this was from if I'm not mistaken, and someone's probably going to correct me, but I think it was from Spain, right? This concept of Islamic art. Islamica was used to reference the Islamic culture.
Islamica.
Yeah. And so that's where we
Por
started.
favor?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. It's actually with all the accent marks. Having said that, we kind of backfilled that explanation. It was actually a brain fart idea that we had on the Elgin O'Hare because initially it was Islamic Republic, and then we were thinking, okay, I wore a lot of Nautica back in the day, and so
that's pretty dope.
I don't know if that's dope or not. Because,
how you got the name from that, wearing the Nautica and Islamic Republic.
I think the first explanation was a little more, a lot more profound than this one.
The second one was cool though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just like, okay, kind of we thought and we rolled with it, and it actually had a pretty.
Nautica used to be this 90s Nautica, Tommy and Polo.
Yeah.
Was like
with the silver and orange.
I wore the TJ Maxx downgraded versions.
I still do that, brother. I still do that.
Marshall, the TJ Maxx, man, with the tag cut in half. Yeah, that's me.
Have you guys ever thought about like you hear about content creators these days talking about like their ideal avatar, their ideal reader avatar? Do you guys think about like not only have you thought about like we want to go after Muslims, but there's a specific kind of Muslim that we want to attract as our audience? You guys think about that ever?
No, I mean there was initially I think a more Western-based Muslim was able to understand and interpret our content, and so naturally through their appreciation of general comedy, we started that with them as a default. But no, I don't necessarily think there's a profile of Muslims that we'd want. Now we want to be able to not get into a back and forth with folks that don't understand our content, because when you get pulled into those sort of conversations, then you start second guessing your content, and then it stifles your creativity, and we don't necessarily want to win that segment or cater or pander to that segment either. But I think where we start from is more, this is our content, cast the net wide, and whoever gets it, right? Having said that, we try to push the envelope that we talked about earlier, but I don't think we start from what is our audience going to appreciate. It's what do we think that's funny, and how do we develop that into something that can work as a either standalone article or maybe even has some teeth to it. But yeah, that's kind of yeah.
Cool.
What happened? What did I do, bro?
I thought you had a follow-up question.
No, I didn't.
Dude, if you Mirza, is there anything we missed out on this show that we should have asked you that we probably didn't?
Do you have something else that you're working on that you want people to pay attention to? You got a book in the making? What's going on?
Are you working on? Is there a movie?
Yeah. There was a movie.
Full-length feature film.
Yeah, it would.
He's gonna stand like, guys, the joke's on you. I've been recording you guys.
This is the movie.
Are you gonna be in Rami? Did you mention? Are you gonna be in Rami season 3?
What about Rami season 3?
Are you gonna be in it?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. Unfortunately.
Wait, you just said, oh yeah. I was like, wait, what?
oh yeah. I'll be the guy in the background, behind the guy in the background. Yeah. No, unfortunately, I'm not going to be. But you know what's funny though? So I got my start in Houston, or I grew up in Houston. But Mo Amer was actually just doing stand-up comedy.
Is he from Houston
at that time? He's from Houston.
Palestinian dude, right?
What's that?
He's a Palestinian dude.
The big fella.
I think he's from Kuwait, isn't he?
Okay, yeah, same guy.
Yeah. But I mean, he actually, Islamica and him were featured in a 2002 issue of the Houston Press. It was like a full feature, and they had him, just like while he was just kind of doing the circuit. And now, like, I mean, he's big time, right? And he was in Rami, and now he's a recurring character in Rami. But kudos to him. He's actually done a pretty good job. Yeah.
Nice.
So I think it would be fitting that you give the Islamica news story, because that's the actual title right now of the podcast, right? The Islamica news story. How would you name this episode?
How would I name this?
Yeah.
Journey into a funny and satirical publication. That's funny. I think put on the spot. I don't know the title.
Oh, think of something funny, because or if you can. I mean, if not, then I'll just leave it there.
It came from a patloon.
Patloon means pants. It came from a patloon.
I was telling Sim, he's like, "What's your creative process?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. Half the stuff I come up with is on the toilet." He's like, you want me to? He's like, no, don't omit details. I'm like, no, I'm gonna have to omit details. I didn't even want to mention that, but
I remember not remember, but a lot of our initial episodes were after rock and roll songs, so I would kind of change a couple words around and make the rock and roll album name or the song name Islamicize it,
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't want to make this whole session about me stroking TMM's ego or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where he would get the names from. So I'm like, yo, that's a dope name, bro. I thought the names were cooler than the episodes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
If you guys could maybe read some of these off, so he knows what I'm talking about.
Crooked Hooks, Hamza Makbul.
Yeah. And I was like, yo,
Episode 101.
maybe.
Yeah.
There was some really cool names. I was like, yo, where is he? I messaged him. I was like, bro, these are some dope names. Where the heck are you getting this creativity from, bro?
just name it.
For a while, he didn't tell me where they were coming from.
Some of them I made up. Some of them I made up. Some of them
I Googled.
Yeah. Some of them I just these are some of my favorite songs growing up, and I was like, well, how do I, kind of integrate that or kind of give it an homage to some of my not
Hey, you're American, it's homage.
It was
it's homage.
Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer and some of my favorite metal bands that I grew up with. But then I realized you know what? I think a lot of people are missing.
Why don't you name it something clickbaity?
Yeah, that's what I just hate clickbait, man. I hate the titles.
I hate name it something that's totally unrelated to anything we talked about. The 5 principles of being improved.
Muslims do it 5 times.
Yeah,
name it. Muslims do it 5 times.
Troll the hell out of your audience.
Yeah.
Muslims do it 5 times.
Watch your follower count go.
Yeah.
Is it a question of heaven? Is that a song?
Yeah, that's a Iced Earth song. It's a rock and roll metal
Crooked
band.
Hooks was
Iced Earth is, by the way, one of their singer was one of the people who, or was a guitarist. He was one of the people who stormed Capitol Hill.
Get out.
Yeah.
Way.
No.
Yeah, so he's become a kind of a joke in the metal rock and roll community.
There's a
now.
bunch of high profile people that got called out. The Olympian swimmer was part of the
There's somebody that was local too.
After Forever.
What about Muhammad Lilan's? He had a cool name. Muhammad Lilan's
Run to the Hills.
Yeah, Run to the Hills. That's an Iron Maiden song.
For which album?
Run to the Hills is from their second album, I think.
I don't know anything about it.
Something like that. Oh, I thought he was asking hey, I used to jam to that too.
That's the question.
I was so happy.
Yeah, that's my contribution is which album?
That sounded so authentic, bro.
I thought for real you know that too. Yeah.
Of course.
Oh yeah, me too.
Oh yeah.
Run to the Hills is actually about the Indian massacre, when the colonials came to America.
Oh really? Okay.
How the Indians had to flee to the hills. So the song is actually more of an activist song.
Oh nice.
About the Native Americans getting hunted down by
Dang, I didn't know
European
that.
settlers.
Wow,
yeah.
Those guys are actually.
It starts out white man across the sea. He brought us pain and misery. He killed our tribes and killed our creed. Yeah.
Wow, this is
But
really dark, bro.
it's said, but it's sung in that heavy metal voice, right?
No, it's more like it's not screaming. It's not yelling. It's Iron Maiden is more like Iron Maiden is more like operatic metal, at least their singing style.
Yeah.
So it's not like screaming it is kind of screaming.
Dude, my hair is long enough now for I can go like this. Should I take my hat off and start headbanging?
No.
We'll do that later. This is the episode you reveal your hair. Yeah.
Iron Maiden is the actual inspiration.
Hair
Call it hair revelation.
Hair reveal.
Yeah. Our mascot, he's so I don't know if you guys ever saw the guy holding the flag.
Yeah, in
the Mamluks mascot.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant.
Hey, can we change it with his permission? Can we temporarily change it to Zangief?
Headbutt the hair.
Dude, I love
the guy holding the flag in the Mad Mamluks. He's the guy. Let me just put on.
I thought you were still talking about the Capitol, right?
No, he's. So you see this guy right here? He's holding the flag.
He's on the corner there too.
He's over there. But that was inspired also from Iron Maiden, who was right here. Where is this?
Oh wait, what? This has got real dark, dude.
Yeah, this is kind of scary, right?
Yeah, Iron Maiden art is crazy. It's like Megadeth art.
Yeah.
Were you ever into art or anything like that too? Or
no,
yeah,
but Uzzer's an amazing artist.
Is he really?
Yeah, he actually did.
So it was inspired from this. the Trooper.
Dang, that's pretty
The
crazy.
Trooper album cover. So that you kind of just have to include some of your, things that inspired you when you were a teenager, and these are all like things that kind of made us who we are. And whenever I can, I try to introduce things that Sheikh Amr used to listen to, even though I don't tell him. But I want it to be, part of all of us. I tell these guys.
Dawood Warnsby?
He listened to what's his name, Warren G.
Oh, yeah?
I remember.
That was when I was in 8th grade, bro.
Bro,
That's when I was in 8th grade.
He loved. Who else?
Was that Regulators?
Dr. Dre.
Yeah, that was Regulators.
He loved Dr. Dre.
That was like in 7th grade.
Warren G.
8th grade.
But then after that, you became religious. So
Yeah, kind
That's
of.
like Dawood Warnsby.
Kind of.
So I'm not putting Dawood Warnsby's emblems around here, okay? Or his song names, all right? It's just automatically
I'm
takes
not
our
gonna
cool
lie,
level
though.
down.
I never used to listen to Dawood Warnsby until I got married, bro. And I don't like bump him, but some of his wording is dope to his songs, bro.
I'm
Some
sure
of his wording
he's-
is dope.
Bro, he's a
like all the
professional
places that you
artist,
prayed.
yeah.
I always thought that was satirical too. All the places that you prayed. You ever listen to that song of his? All the places that you prayed.
No.
Where a Muslim, they have to pray in all these weird
Yeah,
places
for sure,
and stuff.
yeah, right.
And I actually kind of smile when I hear that because all the weird places you actually did have to pray. You know what I'm
you got to
saying?
pick a weird
It's kind of
place.
funny,
Yeah.
and
we
people
prayed
are
at six.
so confused,
We
especially
prayed
in
on,
the
we
late
prayed on
90s.
a roller coaster at Six Flags.
We can sit and pray. Don't worry, go.
All right, guys, we got to wrap this up.
All right, brother.
Mirza, thank you so much for
Oh,
joining
thank
us.
you, man. It's been fun. It's been great.
By
Thanks
the way,
for having me on. Yeah.
people who don't understand, Chicago's going through like this Arctic storm right now where it's super cold. And when we record, we had to turn the furnace off. So it's super cold right now in the studio. And I can't wait to turn on the heat. We'll see y'all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.